in August of our first year, we had a staff time. We spent our entire August day on Ci3T. But the first thing that we did was we had notebooks for our staff. And we spent a lot of time just walking through the components of the notebook, tabbing, that kind of thing. And it's funny because my teachers ask for that now every year. If we redo, if we update things. So it's really, it's really important that they know what components are in your book. And then I want to also just preface this by saying Hillcrest was a year ahead of our Ci3T grant. We had started working on building expectations and some of that. And I really want to caution you to be real careful that you don't go overboard on just the behavior piece. I know you have to start somewhere, but the implementation, that plan that you're doing, make sure that you really hit that hard with staff, that it's academic, social, emotional, and behavioral, because I think a lot of buildings get really caught up in the tickets and all of that, and there are 3 different components to it. So that's the first thing that we did on that first day. But then the other thing that we did, because there is so much in the manual, was we spent a lot of time working on the tier 1 components, choice, opportunities to respond, and we did it in mini sessions where there was opportunities for staff to really do a lot of talking versus me or team members standing up and just talking about it, small group sessions. So those would be 2 things.
Along that line, when I was looking at this integrating academics, behavior, and social, for me, an important part to remember is you can't do all pieces all the time the first year. You really have to think about what are the most critical pieces to get in first. And I agree with Tammy that tier 1 piece is really a critical part in the academic piece because until you've defined that, it's hard to start thinking about tier 2 and tier 3. And one of the exciting things to see is now that we've been 3 years into this and we look at our academic data and we use the triangles, we just adopted that for everything. And the teachers get so excited as they see each year that level of green go up and the level of yellow and red drop. So, but you do have to take your time, I think, and do each piece well. And like the academic piece, it was just this year that we really began to focus on providing some really, what I think is time in our day, we call it extended learning opportunity time, where we really focus on those tier 2 kids, and then that gives us some flexibility to work with kids who are higher, and so we can really put a lot of bodies in one space at one time. The other piece that we really kind of started with was the social and behavior piece, and we use a positive action, which is our social curriculum, and I really think that's had as big an impact on our behavior as anything. Is all of our kids now have the same language. We are consistent about teaching those skills, using the same language, and doing it on a frequent basis. Our counselor's a huge piece of that, and because of that, I think our behavior piece has gotten better. The other piece about behavior, when I started, and I think Tammy would agree, we weren't really good as a district about tracking our behavior, and we really focus as a building on tracking our behaviors through our school management system, which is Skyward. And that's made a huge difference now because we've got enough data that we can really take the time to look at that each year. Every trimester we stop. As a mental health team we look at it, and as a building-wide team we look at that. And when you have that much data and everybody's consistent about putting it in, then you really can begin to make some good decisions about where are our strengths, where are our weaknesses, and where do we need to focus for next year.
I want to talk a little bit about kicking off with the faculty and staff. We had a dramatic change in leadership mid-year at Bishop last year. It caused quite the upheaval with our staff and with our students and with our families. Our behaviors completely deteriorated. Staff as well as student behaviors kind of went downhill. So we knew that this was a big area that we needed to focus on. So we thought, how can we get everybody excited about implementing something new that truly is going to help And I don't think we had a lot of buy-in at the beginning that it was going to make a big difference in our behavior data. So we started our first staff professional development day before the year began. We gave everybody a swag bag. Our swag bags included a Ci3T bookmark that kind of outlined some of the components of what we were going to get started. We gave them a staff t-shirt that on the back, our acronym is BARK, and so it spelled out BARK and what it stood for on the back. We gave them a lanyard that had BARK and what that stood for, and that is, we gave them books of tickets that they were able to hang from that. And as we were starting that professional development, we handed out staff tickets to everybody like they do here at these Ci3T trainings. And it was hilarious because at first nobody knew what was going on. They're like, what's this? What am I going to get? Are we going to win something? Does this mean something? And so at the end, we had a bunch of prizes just for different things and really built the excitement at the staff level so that they could bring that excitement to the students. And I think that made a really big difference for us in changing things around.
Kind of going off what Tammy and Howard said, with Tammy, with her comment about tabbing the manual, we did that for the first time this year at Farley at the beginning of our school year, and it seemed to make life a little bit easier for all staff, and it helped with the understanding of if I need, let's say I have a situation come up and it's related to Ci3T, it's helped with a lot of our questions that were coming up. People are able to use the manual and answer their questions, and if not, within the manual, it tells them who to go to. With our behavior, we are getting ready next year to roll out a Google document to track our behavior. We have, through our team, we've created a minor tracking form and we have an ODR form. And on the back, we've created a flow chart that teachers can use to know which behaviors are minors and which behaviors are office referrals. With the minors, we are getting ready to roll out an interactive Google document that teachers can utilize within their classroom kind of on the spot. And it helps them have that student-teacher conference to go over the behaviors and reteach those expectations. But then it also allows the team to quickly be able to access the data, because using the Google form, we can go right into it almost immediately and have graphs to analyze where behaviors are occurring, and then we can analyze it as a team to see how we can support teachers in those areas.
The staff thing I think is really, really important, and I have to admit, after 3 years I've learned a lot of things, and I was really good when we did our kickoff of giving staff tickets, kind of building that up, and then I kind of let that go a little bit, and then in year 2, what I did is we recognize kids, we draw out of each classroom tickets every other week, and then I go in and acknowledge those kids, and we have some things built up. But I also did that with my staff. So the 50-some tickets that we pulled from our classrooms, then I would pull 4 or 5 of them that had staff names on them, because that's just a reinforcement of thanks for giving the tickets. So I acknowledge staff that way. I always do tickets at meetings. And actually now it's interesting because some of my committees that I'm not always a part of, I just pop into for various things, they'll give them. So I think if you can find ways to do them regularly, it's just a reinforcer for staff that it really does make a difference. We as adults like that reinforcement just like we know our kids do. So that to me is a big piece.
And to piggyback off of that, we at Farley, we do both. We have our weekly drawings we use as part of our town hall meeting that we have on Fridays. And she will draw students, and then she'll draw teachers as well. Then we also have other recognition forms that are in the staff lounge that people can pick up. And on the back, they can pick what the staff member was exhibiting as far as PBIS practices are, and then they can comment on it. And then that allows the staff member to put their name on the hundreds chart within the staff lounge, and those prizes on there are a little bit bigger, and we'll usually award those at staff meetings, people who've helped fill up a row of the hundreds chart, gift cards, coupons, things that we will have had donated through the community.
Yes. I noticed one of the things on here was getting your parents and community involved, and one of the things that happened for us was we had a parent the very first year, and still is actually a member of our Ci3T committee, and that's been really important for us because she really is our liaison between us and the families in our area. One of the things we do, I think we all probably have some kind of a building menu. Like one of the we do we do our drawings on Thursday night, and Friday morning we have our celebration. And one of our celebration items for kids is what we call the Sunflower 500. I have a circular building, and the kids get to, I think we choose 5 or 6, and they get to run around there as fast as they can. And they love that. It's crazy. And I think it does a couple of things, because then all the other kids come out of their classrooms and they're cheering, but it just keeps everybody reminding why we're doing that. And part of that drawing is, just like they talked about, after we do those drawings, we dump all those tickets in a big bucket, and then we pull out 3 for our staff. And one of the ones we always do is my parking spot. So, you know, and that's a pretty hot item, actually. And then, but like I say, one of the parent that actually is on our committee, she said, one of the things she does for us is she buys flowers for one of our staff members that we pick every week, so we do that. All of our classrooms have a classroom menu, and our grade levels our grade level teams work together on those menus. That's important. We have like an end of each, we do trimesters. Each trimester we have some kind of a celebration, and now we're far enough along that the kids help their teachers decide what those celebrations are. And so it's like, if your classroom wants to do this celebration, it might be a popcorn party, then it's going to cost your class 100 tickets. And it's amazing how kids will hoard those tickets to make sure that their classroom gets that end of the year, at that end of that semester celebration. The other piece was this largest barrier, and I think Tammy's so great at that, because I really do think I don't care how positive, cheery, happy, excited you are, there's going to be 1 or 2 people in your group that just hasn't quite bought into that process yet.
Scratching.
Yeah.
Scratching.
And my advice to you is you just keep plugging away, because I'm into 3 years, and you know, each year 1 more of those buys into the system, but it does take time to do that. And a piece of that is I try to go out and talk to those people who I know are informal leaders but aren't behind us and leading in the right direction. So I try to go out there and make sure I'm listening to them. What is it that's not working that you're concerned about? And then I try to help our Ci3T team to answer those people's questions.
There's a couple things with that. When I talked about making sure you don't get heavily focused just in one of the pillars or that piece, this year we combined our building leadership team and our Ci3T team, which has been huge. It kind of expands who's involved. But every meeting, every building leadership team meeting, I share a piece of data. And that is everything from academic data to, some of us have talked about our behavioral data. But we also, you'll be doing these implementation surveys, and there's 2 things about that. The first year we did it, people had to say that they wanted to participate. In our district, though, we've encouraged teachers to all participate. And almost all of my staff have participated in those surveys, partially because, and I want to reinforce this, I have worked really hard to make time in my schedule to do these things. Don't leave it up to teachers to do, because they have a lot on their plate. But secondly, that implementation feedback that you get, that's always a piece of our building leadership team. And again, teachers, we're all this way. We go to that and we focus in on the 1 or 2 negative things, and I was very guilty of that. But what has happened when I have that in front of them regularly is they're starting to see, you know what, there's this many positives, there's, you know, these couple of negatives, so we've got to focus on, you know, what we're doing well. And look at those, like you said, try to come back and make little tweaks. But our data over 3 years has really changed. And I think that's because we've listened and made some tweaks. But we didn't, I guess what I want to say is, just because we got 1 or 2 negatives, we didn't come back to the table each time we went to a session and said, okay, we got to change this because somebody doesn't like it. I think you also have to look at, you know, holding the course for a period of time.
And I think transparency with your staff is going to make a big difference. When you get your data, we recently just got our implementation results, and we went back to the school. We took the PowerPoint that we were given from the Ci3T, and we also added to it. We went through there and we looked at that report, and we pulled out the positives. and we also pulled out the things we needed to work on, and we shared both. We found that with the staff hearing the positives and the things that we need to work on, people were able to buy in a little bit better. And the more transparent we have gotten with our data, the more we have been able to get those scratchy people, as Kathleen calls them, on board. And we almost have, I'm pretty comfortable saying we almost have 100% buy-in within Farley.
I will say one thing that emphasize what Tammy said, and I think this is true of all 14 of our buildings, that over time we moved away from this is Ci3T and this is curriculum and this is this, to now it's really, that's how we organize what we do as Ci3T. And I think all 14 of us have made that, or are making that switch to this is what we do.
And if you have not in your implementation plan really thought about what are your core things that you believe in as a school and put those in there. I mean, I tell my new teachers, I spend time every summer with my new staff going through our manual, and that's where we focus. And basically what I say to them is the other tab things, the things that we're going to tab are the support for that implementation plan. So again, I know that Kathleen's group has really guided you in that, but that's probably the one thing that each year we've added to. In our district, we do a lot of equity work, and it was really missing from our Ci3T plans. But as Howard says, as we've gone into now finishing up year 3, we do see it as Ci3T is the umbrella, and what are the key things. I honestly, I tell my teachers that if you know that implementation plan and you are doing those things, you are doing your job at Hillcrest. Everything is in there.
And I think holding them accountable, I often get called to assist with the student behavior or remove students from the classroom, and realized pretty quickly that I was enabling teachers to do that, and that what I needed to do instead is have my own manual that I'm taking to them and saying, okay, so where are we on our reactive plan? Where are we on that flow chart? Have we done these 3 steps first before we get here? And really holding them accountable so that I'm not just swooping as the hero, because that cuts their feet out from under them. They then don't have as much credibility with those students that are significant behavior problems. So holding them accountable to using that and staying grounded in your plan.
Using the tier 1 strategies to
Before
support
we
those
jump to a
behaviors.
tier 3 and having that fidelity, I had one that told me, I've done every single intervention with this kiddo that's on our tertiary and secondary grids. I said, well, how is that possible? Because there's probably 45 of those, and you have to do them for 6 weeks to show an effect. So holding them accountable to, you have to try it. It's not going to change in half an hour. You can't just jump ship and do 5 different interventions in a day and expect to see those results.
And our minor forms go with that. I mean, they're very similar to that. It has flowchart on the back, so the teacher's really struggling. But then on the front, what they fill out, part of that they fill out is what interventions have you used? And we've given them a list. I think it's close to 15 or 20 just right there. And then they also have the other options. So if they've tried something else with the student, and then on the bottom of the form, it has, okay, after 3 steps, then you're going to call the parent. And then once you've reached 6 for a minor behavior, then it becomes an automatic ODR, and you send the minor tracking form with the ODR so that this office staff has the data already there to say, okay, this behavior has occurred on this date, and this date. And we record that data at the end of every month. So at the beginning of every month, kids essentially have a fresh start with the minor behavior forms. So if a behavior occurred on the 31st of March and it was recorded, then we record it for April. And let's say it happened 2 weeks later, more than likely you would start a new form. Now if it happened April 1st, then they normally roll into that behavior form because it's right there in that timeline. But having that flow chart and that minor tracking form has made a big difference within our school, and a big difference with staff morale. I feel like staff feel supported now.
We use that in our building to show the progress that we've made. We look at our tier 3 level because that's what frustrates people is the tier 3. We're good on tier 1, we're pretty good on tier 2. It's those high flying kids that they feel like run our entire lives, and they kind of do. But when we can show our data and show that we've made progress at tier 1 and tier 2 levels, and then say, I think last year by this time we probably had 55 out of school suspensions, and right now I have 4. So we really have made a big difference in showing them that data that at tier 3, even though those kids are running quite a bit of our time, look at the progress that we've made. That's a humongous reduction in out of school suspensions.
I had a really interesting situation with that. So we made just a flyer pamphlet that went home that really just talked about our expectations and what kinds of things would be happening around that. That was year one. But my parent, I've been lucky. She's been really involved, and she in year two, we went to our site council, and she presented the components from a parent perspective. But what happened with that was she wanted to share our notebook that we use with staff, and the parents were like, we want that. We want access to that. And it really wasn't appropriate for parents. So 2 summers ago, or was that just last, anyway, for a little over a year now, we did a little mini Ci3T booklet for our parents. And we post it on our website. And what's interesting is if kids will come home and be really excited about the tickets and the expectations and that kind of thing. I every year have parents say to me, I want to use some of that at home. And so that's how you get the parent buy-in piece.
We also sent home a blank matrix, expectation matrix for home, so that they could put their own settings in there and their own behaviors. I didn't have very many, but encouraged them to bring it back, and they could earn a little something from me or an extra ticket for bringing it back, and talking to me about how they walked through the Ci3T expectations at home. So that's something that I really want to amp up next year as well.
And again, I mean, another little piece, and I'm guessing it's been part of the templates, is the postcards that we send home. That again gets parents really involved.
That's very exciting for kids and our parents.
Yeah. It was funny. So like I said, I go to classrooms every other week, and we pull tickets and I recognize kids. And last Friday we had kindergarten roundup. We do it on Fridays. Last Friday we had kindergarten roundup, and so I couldn't do it. I had to do it this past Monday. And I always do our postcards on Thursday. So when I walked into classrooms on Monday, several kids said, Miss Becker, I already knew I was going to be the awesome hawk because my postcard came in the mail. But again, that reinforces that those postcards do mean something to kids and parents. So I thought that was fun. So.
Our leadership team is now also our Ci3 team, like Tammy was talking about. And so we're very intentional with how we use an application process, but we have a primary, a secondary, a mental health team member, the administrative team members, support staff. So ours is an ELL person, because we will become an ELL site, which we hadn't been previously, so thought that was important. So just making sure there was a nice mix of what we wanted to be on the leadership team, so that all of those perspectives were heard and included in the planning.
And I think, go ahead.
Sorry, we're the same way at Farley. At Farley, we have almost every grade level represented on the team. And then we also have included support staff from around the building. And then if we have situations that are coming up or things that need to be addressed that would involve other staff, we will bring them into the fold temporarily to address the issue.
We're also reaching beyond our team and just recognizing teacher leaders within the building who's really good at this aspect of classroom management, who's really good at this, and encouraging them to become teacher leaders, sending people to them for observations and feedback sessions. And so while they may not be an official member of the team, they still have a lot to contribute. So not letting the burden just fall on the Ci3T leadership team members, but really getting the experts in your building to step up.
I think what I was maybe hearing you say is you've got other committees going right now with some work. In our first couple years, we had those committees. So I think you're going to get to a point but that's where I think I would focus, is really working every time you're meeting with those separate committees. What does it have to do with, how does it relate to this aspect of the implementation plan? And we've really gotten to the point, again, where we bring it all together. And I will tell you, it's that teacher leadership piece of just continuing to expand those roles. One of the things we did this year is, and I'm guessing most buildings hear this, is we have a lot of experts in our building that aren't always involved in the leadership team and that kind of thing. So we've gone to, and we did it our first year of Ci3T implementation, the little mini sessions. But we do a lot of just little mini breakout sessions. We have collaboration in our district on Wednesdays, and it's 90 minutes. And so multiple times during the year, we break that. It's not a 90-minute session. It's 3 30-minute sessions that people can go to where they need the support. And that's where then I start to reach out. We may have a writing one, we may have a mental health. That makes sense.
And then they'll report back.
Right, I mean, I always encourage my team members, to think about, we really function in teams at my building. So I always say to them before we break out, think about who's gonna go to what so you can come back and share. I put a lot of responsibility on my leader, now that we've gone to CI3T, our building leadership team combined, that those people have a key role in supporting others. That's big.
Yeah, my BLT, we call it the B&B team because it's BLT, Building Leadership Team, and then our acronym is BEST. And so we call it the B&B team. And my BLT members are selected by their teams because that's just the management's role that they have. And then my CI3T team, now that we've combined them, are people who just want to be involved. And we had a pretty much of a core CI3T team the first 3 years. And I think that's kind of important because you just got to, to get started, you got to hang together and have that, have that knowledge. But this year, we'll add 2 new members to that team who just are people who are excited about what we're doing and want to do it. I have one person who's going to drop off the team because they have other things going on in their career that they need to focus on. So, we've reached that point where I think that team's a little bit fluid. The other piece about all those different committees, like my mental health team meets every week, and I'm on that team, but also one of my other CI3T team members is on there. And so, when we meet with that B&B team every other week, each one of those committees has, if they have something, they bring it back to that group, and that's how we do that. And then those grade level teams and specials teams, they're responsible then to go back and talk to their individual small teams.
So like you guys said, if I'm hearing you, it's like an umbrella. You still do a lot of little things, but you tie it all back together.
Yeah.
Because you have your team.